The night was quiet in downtown Los Angeles, yet the streets near the old diner buzzed with small groups of people. Some laughed loudly, some walked home tired from long shifts, and others seemed lost in thought. Among them walked Keanu Reeves, dressed simply, wearing a black jacket, his face calm as always. He liked to move quietly, unnoticed, just another man in the city he called home. But this night would be different. This night would reveal something about him that even his biggest fans never truly understood. A young waiter stood outside the diner, nervously holding his phone. His name was Ethan. He was only 19 and had been struggling to balance 2 jobs, night classes, and caring for his sick mother. Inside the diner, his manager had just shouted at him for being late again, even though Ethan had explained he was coming from the hospital. He stepped outside to breathe, his eyes watery, his heart heavy with the thought that he might lose this job. Without it, he would not be able to pay for his mother's medicine. As Ethan leaned against the wall, staring at the ground, a gentle voice interrupted his thoughts. "Are you okay?" Ethan looked up and froze. The man standing there was none other than Keanu Reeves. Ethan blinked, unsure if his tired mind was playing tricks on him, but it was real. The kind eyes, the humble smile, it was Keanu. I'm fine," Ethan stammered, embarrassed. "Just a tough day." Keanu didn't just nod and walk away like most strangers would. Instead, he stood still, his hands tucked gently into his jacket pockets, his eyes focused with genuine concern. "You don't look fine," he said softly. "Sometimes it helps to talk about it." Ethan hesitated. Why would a man like Keanu Reeves, an international star, care about his problems? Yet something in Keanu's tone made him feel safe. Ethan sighed. "My mom is sick. I'm late to work because of her. My boss doesn't care. I might lose this job. And if I do, I don't know what will happen." Keanu listened carefully, not interrupting, not rushing. His silence wasn't cold. It was warm, patient. When Ethan finished, Keanu nodded slowly. "Life can be cruel sometimes," he said, "but you're stronger than you think. And your kindness, your care for your mom, that matters more than you realize." Just then, Ethan's manager stormed outside, his voice sharp. "Ethan, if you don't get back in right now, you're fired." His eyes then shifted to Keanu and his face changed instantly. "Mr. Reeves, oh my God, I'm so sorry if this kid was bothering you." Keanu turned to the manager with a calm but firm expression. "He wasn't bothering me. In fact, he's one of the most hardworking young men I've met tonight. I think you should treat him with more respect." The manager's face went pale. A few people on the sidewalk had already started noticing the scene. Whispers spread. "Is that Keanu Reeves?" Phones lifted into the air, recording. But Keanu paid no attention. He looked only at Ethan and his manager. The manager stuttered. Of course, Mr. Reeves. I didn't mean—" Keanu raised his hand gently, stopping him from continuing. "We all have tough days," Keanu said, "but kindness costs nothing. Maybe try giving him a chance." The manager nodded nervously, unable to argue. Ethan stood frozen, his heart pounding. No one had ever defended him like this, especially not someone as respected as Keanu Reeves. But Keanu wasn't finished. He turned back to Ethan. "How much are your mother's medicines?" he asked, his voice still soft. Ethan's eyes widened. "Sir, I can't." Keanu placed a hand on Ethan's shoulder. "Please, let me help." Tears filled Ethan's eyes. He had seen Keanu in movies, playing heroes who saved the day, but he never expected to see that same kindness in real life. That night, Keanu walked with Ethan to a nearby pharmacy. He quietly paid for months of his mother's medicine. No cameras, no press release, no attention, just an act of kindness. When Ethan tried to thank him, Keanu only smiled and said, "One day, when you're able, help someone else. That's how we keep the kindness moving forward." The moment stayed with Ethan forever, and as he returned to the diner, his manager suddenly treated him differently, respect replacing anger. The other staff looked at him with new eyes, as though his worth had finally been seen. But for Ethan, the real change wasn't how others saw him, it was how he now saw himself. If a man as humble as Keanu Reeves believed in him, maybe he could believe in himself too. What Ethan didn't know was that this night was only the beginning. Keanu's kindness would soon ripple far beyond a single diner, touching lives in ways no one could predict. The city would soon witness stories that proved, once again, why Keanu Reeves is called the nicest man alive. The story of that night at the diner spread slowly, not because Keanu told anyone, but because people who witnessed it could not keep quiet. Videos recorded on shaky phones went viral the next morning. Strangers online wrote comments like this: "Is why we love him," and "Keanu is truly different from other celebrities." But for Keanu, nothing changed. He woke up the same way, brewed his own coffee, and stepped outside without thinking about fame. His only thought was, "How can I be better today?" 2 days later, while walking through a quiet part of Los Angeles, Keanu stopped near a bus station. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the cracked pavement. On a worn wooden bench sat a woman in her 50s, her clothes neat but tired, her shoulders slumped as if carrying the weight of the world. Beside her was a large backpack, old and patched. She looked lost. Keanu, as usual, could have passed by unnoticed, but something about the woman's face made him pause. It was the same kind of exhaustion he had seen in Ethan's eyes at the diner. He walked closer and asked gently, "Are you waiting for someone?" The woman looked up, startled, and her eyes widened. You're Keanu Reeves," she whispered. Her voice was filled with surprise, but also with shame, as though she didn't want to be seen in her current state. Keanu smiled softly. "Yes, but right now, I'm just another traveler like you. Are you okay?" Her lips trembled. "No one ever asks me that," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "I lost my job last month. I've been sleeping at shelters, sometimes here at the station. I'm trying to find work, but it feels impossible." Keanu sat down beside her, ignoring the curious looks of people nearby. He leaned forward, elbows resting on his knees, and said, "I know what it feels like to lose things you thought would last. It can break your spirit if you let it. But you're here, still trying. That shows strength." The woman, whose name was Maria, explained her story in fragments: how she had once worked as a receptionist, how her company closed suddenly, how she had no family close by to help. Every word carried pain, but also a quiet resilience. Without hesitation, Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out a folded envelope he had prepared earlier that morning. He had developed a habit of carrying extra cash, not for himself, but for moments like this. He handed it to her. "This isn't charity," he said gently. "This is a bridge. Sometimes all we need is a bridge to get to the other side." Maria's hands shook as she opened it and saw enough money to cover rent and food for weeks. Her tears fell freely now. Why would you do this for me?" she asked. Keanu looked at her with steady eyes. "Because once, when I was younger, people showed me kindness when I didn't deserve it. It saved me. Now it's my turn to keep that kindness alive." People around them began recording again, but Keanu didn't care. His focus remained on Maria. He even walked with her to a nearby shelter where he spoke quietly with the staff, making sure she was given proper help and resources. Later that evening, as Keanu walked back home, a thought struck him. He had always believed in small acts of kindness, but lately those small acts had started chaining together. From Ethan at the diner to Maria at the station, it felt as if life was guiding him into the lives of people who needed light. But not. Everyone viewed his actions kindly. In the days that followed, some media outlets twisted the stories, suggesting that Keanu was doing these things for publicity. Headlines shouted, "Actor uses kindness as a show, or is it all an act?" Keanu remained, silent, refusing to defend himself in interviews. He believed kindness should never need an explanation. But deep inside, it hurt him that people could look at something pure and doubt it. One evening, as he sat quietly on a park bench, a group of teenagers walked past him, laughing loudly. One of them recognized him and shouted, "Hey, it's the nicest man alive. Why don't you buy us something too?" They laughed and walked away, mocking him. Keanu sat still, his heart heavy. He wasn't angry, only sad. He had always known that when you show kindness openly, some people will not understand. Some will even mock it. Yet he whispered to himself, "I will not stop." The next morning, Keanu visited Ethan at the diner again. Ethan ran out smiling, telling him how his mother was recovering better thanks to the medicine. His words gave Keanu new strength. Because even if the world doubted, even if some mocked, the truth was clear in Ethan's eyes, in Maria's tears, in the lives quietly changed. But fate was about to test him again, this time in a much larger, much more public way. A single event was coming that would challenge not just Keanu's kindness, but also his resilience against judgment and misunderstanding. The city lights of Los Angeles sparkled like scattered diamonds. But for Keanu Reeves, the glow of fame always felt dim compared to the quietness he carried inside. His acts of kindness had already touched Ethan and Maria, yet whispers had begun to spread louder than the truth. Media headlines grew sharper. Some people praised him as an angel, while others accused him of using niceness as a performance. The conflict came to a boiling point one evening at a charity gala. Keanu had never liked fancy events, but he attended because the money raised would go to children's hospitals. He arrived quietly, wearing a simple black suit, keeping his head low. Cameras flashed in every direction, reporters shouted his name, and the room buzzed with chatter. But Keanu only cared about blending into the background, greeting people, softly, never demanding attention. As the dinner went on, an unexpected voice cut through the noise. A well-known talk show host, famous for his sharp humor, suddenly called out, "Ladies and gentlemen, here tonight we have the man the internet calls the nicest guy alive, Keanu Reeves. Tell us, Keanu, is all this kindness just another role? You're playing." The room fell silent. Forks paused midair, eyes turned to Keanu. Some guests smirked, others looked uncomfortable. The host's words weren't just playful. They carried a sting, a challenge as if daring Keanu to defend himself. Keanu raised his eyes slowly, his face calm, though his heart felt heavy. He could have ignored it. He could have laughed it off. But something inside told him this was a moment people would remember. He stood and spoke in a voice steady but gentle. "Kindness is not a performance," he said. "It is not a mask you put on for the cameras. It is a choice. Sometimes it is the hardest choice. When the world is unkind, when life feels cruel, choosing to stay gentle takes strength. If people doubt me, that's okay, because I don't do this for approval. I do it because I know what pain feels like, and I don't want others to carry it alone." A hush spread across the room. Some eyes filled with tears, others with shame. Ethan, who had been invited as a guest after his story reached the charity organizers, sat in the corner, his hands clapping slowly. The applause grew, spreading through the hall until even the host who mocked him lowered his gaze. But not everyone was moved. Backstage, a few wealthy donors whispered that Keanu's humility made them uncomfortable. One of them muttered, "He makes us look selfish." Another added, "If he keeps this up, the focus will shift from us to him." Jealousy stirred in the shadows. After the gala, as Keanu left quietly through a side door, he saw a young girl standing outside with her father. The girl was pale, thin, holding a stuffed toy in her arms. Her father explained softly, "She has been sick for a long time. She wanted to meet you, but we couldn't afford tickets to the event. We just hoped to see you from a distance." Without hesitation, Keanu knelt down to the girl's eye level. He smiled warmly and asked her about her toy, listening as if her words were the most important thing in the world. Then he gently took off his suit jacket and draped it around her small shoulders. "Stay strong," he whispered. "The world needs your light." The father's eyes welled with tears. "Thank you," he said, his voice breaking. That moment was captured not by cameras, but by the hearts of those who witnessed it. It was proof again that Keanu's kindness wasn't an act. It was who he was when no stage lights shone. Yet, even as these quiet moments revealed his heart, a storm was gathering. Rumors spread online that Keanu was interfering too much in people's lives, that his generosity was making others look weak. A few powerful figures, uncomfortable with his quiet influence, began plotting to expose him in ways that could destroy his reputation. One tabloid even prepared a false story, twisting his help for Maria into a claim that he used her for sympathy. When Keanu's friend warned him about the coming storm, he simply said, "If telling the truth means they must lie about me, then I will stay silent. Kindness doesn't need to fight. It only needs to endure." But the storm would not pass quietly. Within days, cameras would catch him in the middle of a situation so explosive that the entire world would stop to watch, waiting to see if the so-called nicest man alive would break under pressure or prove once more that humility is stronger than hate. The morning sky over Los Angeles was painted in soft shades of gold, but the news that filled the city felt anything but gentle. Tabloids shouted headlines about Keanu Reeves, questioning his kindness, twisting his actions into stories of manipulation and self-promotion. Talk shows replayed clips of his speech at the gala, cutting it into pieces to make him look arrogant rather than humble. The whispers had grown into thunder. Everywhere Keanu went, cameras followed, reporters shouted, "Are you faking it? Are you using kindness for fame?" The noise grew unbearable. Yet, in the middle of this chaos, Keanu remained quiet. He did not issue statements. He did not defend himself with interviews. Instead, he kept living the same way, simple, silent, gentle. But the storm was about to drag him into a situation that no silence could escape. A week later, Keanu boarded a flight from Los Angeles to New York. He chose economy class, as he often did, preferring to sit among ordinary passengers instead of hiding behind luxury. The plane buzzed with chatter as people noticed him but tried to act normal. Then it happened. A woman sitting 2 rows ahead suddenly stood up, her voice sharp and filled with anger. "This is ridiculous," she shouted at the flight attendants. "Why is he sitting here? He's a millionaire. He should be in first class. People like him don't belong with us." The cabin froze. Everyone turned their eyes toward Keanu. The woman pointed at him as if he were guilty of a crime. "This is just a show. He wants attention, sitting here like he's one of us. It's fake." Keanu looked up slowly, his calm face betraying no anger. The flight attendants tried to quiet the woman, but she kept shouting, her words dripping with bitterness. "You're not humble. You're a liar," whispers spread among the passengers. Some looked uncomfortable. Others defended him. One man said, "Leave him alone. He's not bothering anyone." Another woman added, "At least he's not acting better than us." But the shouting grew louder, and soon phones were raised, recording every second. Keanu knew that by the time the plane landed, the world would see this video. The question was, how would he respond? Slowly, he stood up. The cabin fell silent except for the hum of the engines. Keanu looked directly at the woman, his voice soft, but firm. "I'm sorry if my presence here makes you uncomfortable," he said. "But I sit here because I believe no seat makes a person more valuable than another. We are all human. We all breathe the same air, fly the same sky." His words carried no anger, no pride, just truth. The woman, however, only grew more agitated. "Don't pretend you're better than us by acting humble," she snapped. Keanu's eyes softened. "I'm not better," he said. "I've lost people. I've felt pain. I've walked through life like anyone else. All I try to do is treat others with the kindness I wish the world had shown me more often. If that offends you, I cannot change your heart, but I will not stop being kind." A quiet stillness filled the cabin. Then, unexpectedly, a young boy sitting near the window stood up and said, "Mr. Reeves helped my cousin when she was sick. He gave her hope. He's not fake." His small voice broke the tension. Passengers began clapping, one after another, until the entire cabin was filled with applause. The angry woman sat down, her face red, her words drowned by the sound of strangers united in respect. The video went viral before the plane even landed. Millions watched Keanu's calm response, his refusal to fight anger with anger. Hashtags praising his humility filled social media. But as the world celebrated him once more, Keanu felt something deeper stirring inside. The truth was, moments like these took a toll on him. He carried the pain of being misunderstood, the weight of being mocked for something he held sacred. When the cameras turned off, he often sat alone, wondering if the world really valued kindness, or only wanted it as entertainment. That night in New York, Keanu walked alone through a quiet park. He thought about Ethan, about Maria, about the little girl with the toy at the gala. Their faces gave him strength. "I will keep going," he whispered to himself, "because if even one person feels less alone, it's worth it." But fate was not finished testing him. Because in the days to come, Keanu would face a choice that would push his humility, his resilience, and his kindness to their very limits. It would no longer be about words or gentle acts. It would be about sacrifice. New York City was alive with noise, flashing lights, and restless footsteps, but Keanu Reeves walked through it quietly, his shoulders slightly bent, his hands tucked in his coat pockets. The video from the airplane had made him a global headline. Again. Millions praised his calmness, calling him a symbol of grace in a world quick to anger. But the same attention also brought critics louder than before. Some television hosts mocked him, saying, "Anyone can sit in economy for a show." Others insisted his kindness was nothing but a calculated brand. The constant noise pressed on, him like an invisible weight. But the real test came one evening when Keanu was invited to attend a fundraiser for rebuilding a burned-down community center in Brooklyn. It was a place where children had once gathered for after-school programs, a place that gave hope to struggling families. Without it, many kids had been left wandering the streets. Keanu arrived quietly, as always, not walking the red carpet, but slipping through the side door. Inside, he met parents and children whose faces carried both loss and hope. One little boy tugged at his sleeve and whispered, "My basketball court burned down. Will it come back?" Keanu knelt down to eye level. "Yes," he said softly. "We will make sure it does." The event began with speeches from city officials and wealthy donors. Promises filled the air, but behind the stage, Keanu overheard whispers that chilled him. Two sponsors argued quietly about how little they were actually going to contribute, planning to use the fundraiser mostly as publicity. "They'll thank us anyway," one said. "We just need to look generous." Keanu's heart tightened. He thought of the boy who had asked about the basketball court. He thought of all the families who were waiting for something real, not empty promises. When Keanu was unexpectedly called to the stage, the room erupted in applause. He walked slowly to the microphone, his face humble, his mind heavy. "I came here tonight because I believe in this community," he began. "I believe in these children, in their right to dream, to play, to learn. But dreams need more than words. They need action." The room grew quiet. Cameras focused on him. Keanu took a deep breath. "So, tonight, I will cover the full cost of rebuilding the community center. Every brick, every beam, every basketball hoop. It will stand again, not because I want credit, but because these families deserve hope." Gasps filled the room. Parents wept openly. Children cheered. But behind the applause, Keanu noticed the faces of some wealthy donors tightening with resentment. His act had exposed their empty promises. His sacrifice had made their wealth look small. After the event, one of them confronted him angrily. "You humiliated us," the man snapped. "We can't compete with your theatrics." Keanu looked at him quietly and replied, "It's not a competition. It's about people who need help." Then he walked away, leaving the man speechless. The next morning, news of Keanu's pledge dominated headlines. Millions praised him, calling him a hero. But at the same time, powerful critics grew angrier, whispering that he was making them look weak, that his generosity was dangerous because it forced others to face their own lack of compassion. For Keanu, the sacrifice was real. Covering the cost of the center meant millions from his own savings, money he could never get back. But he didn't think of it as loss. He thought of it as a promise kept to the boy who had asked if his basketball court would return. Weeks later, when construction began, Keanu visited the site quietly. Children ran to hug him. Parents shook his hand with tears in their eyes. Ethan was there too, volunteering, saying, "You changed my life, and now I want to help change theirs." Keanu smiled, feeling a quiet warmth spread through his chest. This was the reward, seeing kindness multiply, seeing hope restored. But even as the center rose from ashes, shadows gathered again. The critics who resented him were planning something more dangerous this time. They didn't just want to question his kindness. They wanted to break it. And soon, Keanu would face a moment not of giving money or speaking gentle words, but a moment where someone's dignity and future rested entirely on whether he would stand up, even if it meant risking his own name forever. The rain had cleared, but the storm around Keanu's life had only grown louder. The world was divided, half calling him a saint, the other half insisting no man could be that genuine. His silence made him even more mysterious. People demanded answers, but Keanu gave none. Then came the night that would change everything. He was in New York, walking home from a late dinner, when he heard raised voices from a narrow alley. His first instinct was to walk past quietly. After all, he was just one man. But the sound of a child crying froze him in place. Without hesitation, Keanu stepped into the shadows of the alley. There he saw a teenage boy cornered by two older men. Their voices were sharp, filled with anger, demanding money the boy clearly didn't have. The boy clutched a small backpack to his chest, tears streaking his face. "Please," the boy begged, "it's for my sister. She's sick. I don't have anything else." Keanu's heart clenched. He knew this was dangerous. The men were bigger, stronger, and desperate, but he also knew he could not walk away. He stepped forward. "Hey," he said calmly, his voice steady. "Let him go." The men turned, their faces twisted with suspicion. One of them sneered, "Wait, aren't you Keanu Reeves?" Keanu gave a faint smile. "Yes, but right now, I'm just someone asking you to let the kid go." The men laughed bitterly. "Why should we? What's it to you?" Keanu walked closer, his steps slow but unwavering. "Because kindness is free," he said, "and because one day you might need it yourself." For a tense moment, no one moved. Then, perhaps realizing the eyes of the world might soon be on them, the men shoved the boy aside and stormed off, muttering curses under their breath. The boy collapsed against the wall, sobbing. Keanu knelt beside him. "You're safe now," he whispered. The boy explained that his sister was in the hospital, and he had been trying to deliver the backpack filled with food and small gifts for her. Keanu listened quietly, his hand resting gently on the boy's shoulder. Then he said, "Let's go together." That night, Keanu walked with the boy to the hospital. When they entered the small, dimly lit room, the boy's sister sat up weakly, her face lighting up at the sight of him. Keanu placed the backpack on her bed, then pulled a chair close. He stayed there for hours, listening to her stories, making her laugh, and quietly paying for her medical bills before leaving. No cameras, no announcement, no performance, just a man choosing to stand beside strangers in their darkest moments. But destiny had one last twist. A nurse who witnessed everything later shared the story online. Unlike other rumors, this time there was no distortion, no twisting of truth. People saw Keanu for who he was. Not perfect, not trying to be, but human, choosing kindness again and again, even when it cost him peace, even when it brought doubt and ridicule. The internet exploded once more, but this time the tone had changed. People didn't just call him the nicest man alive. They began sharing their own stories of kindness. Neighbors helping neighbors, strangers feeding the hungry, children donating toys to hospitals. His quiet actions had become a spark, lighting a fire of compassion across the world. Keanu, sitting alone in his apartment days later, saw these stories flood his screen. He leaned back in his chair, a small smile forming. For the first time in weeks, his heart felt lighter, because this was never about proving himself. It was about proving that kindness still mattered. He whispered into the quiet room, "If even one person chooses love over anger, then all of this has been worth it." And with that, Keanu Reeves, humble, scarred, yet unbroken, had once again shown the world that sometimes the greatest strength is not in power, but in gentleness.